we've got Emily Black with us today. She's a final year dental student at the University of Bristol. She's intercalated, done global health, so had an extra degree whilst doing dentistry. She's also involved in a lot of other things outside of dental school. I won't spoil it for you now. She'll tell us all about it. But thank you, Emily, for coming on, and thank you for giving up some of your Saturday.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
Right, so let's get straight into it. So you're at Bristol University doing dentistry. You're in final year now, but I want to find out, what was it like getting started at dental school?
Sure. So a little while ago now. So when I first came to Bristol, I was really excited, but I wasn't really sure what to expect. And at Bristol, in our welcome week, everything was based like down in the dental hospital, which is like was quite far away from the halls that I was in. So I basically ended Freshers Week absolutely exhausted, and I think I was very like overwhelmed about everything that was going on and how everyone in my halls were like making friends really quickly, but I was down in the dental school, and I think the first week I was like, whoa, like this is not entirely what I expected. And then the following week we started the sort of structure of dental school. So lectures, we went into the dissection room for the first time. That was, again, quite intimidating. And I think the first week we were given a skull, and we were given like a stick basically. And we were like, they told us like, okay, you need to get the stick and you need to put it through one of the holes in the skull and name it. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is really hard. I was like, I was just finding anatomy in particular really, really difficult. So I definitely struggled to start with, and I'd never really like struggled academically at school before. So that was definitely like something that I wasn't expecting. But then as I started to get settled, and as I started to make friends like within the dental year, as I realized that like we were all in the same boat and that I wasn't the only one that was finding it difficult, it definitely became a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable. So we started to get a bit of a structure. So for example, we always had anatomy on a Tuesday, so I always kind of knew, okay, I've got the weekend to like have a good look over whatever we're studying that week within anatomy. And we started to have lectures, and what was really cool that I'd never had at school before is the fact that all the lectures were recorded. So if I ever got really, really stuck, I started like writing how far through I was in the lecture by just like looking at the clock in the corner. So if I had a lecture at 9 and then at 9:20 I was getting really lost, I would just write the time next to the slide so that I had an opportunity to go back and reflect on it and listen to it again. So that was definitely, once I started realizing that there were lots of tools out there that I could use. And also when I kind of realized, oh, I've actually got a little bit more time on my hands than I ever have before. So when you're at school every single day, all day, Monday to Friday. And then I play a lot of sports. I play sports at the weekend and stuff. So I kind of realized, oh, I've got an afternoon off, or, oh, I don't have any lectures this morning. And I realized like, oh, wow, if I organize myself and if I create a structure in my working week, I'm going to be far less stressed. And I think I wasn't used to the fact that the timetable changed every week. So when you're at school, you're like, okay, Monday I have chemistry, and on the afternoon I have sport, and that it's very like regimented at school. Whereas at dental school, it's changing all of the time, every single week. Apart from like a few things where like I always had anatomy on a Tuesday, I would always have a practical on a Thursday or Friday. I can't entirely remember. So once I started to get into a bit of a routine, and I realized that if I wanted to feel settled, I needed to look at the week that I had upcoming, and that made me feel a lot better. We also had things like we used to call e-biolabs, which was like a bit of learning online that we would do before our labs, and I started just doing them with my friends because I'd find it quite overwhelming because it was very sciencey. But you know, I had I think there were about 5 dentists that were in my halls, and they're all still like my best friends now. and we started doing them together. And once that started happening, I felt a lot more settled. And I remember in my first term, I found it quite difficult because I'm a hockey player, and I was going to hockey training, but I wasn't getting picked for any matches, and I was like heartbroken that this had happened. But I think the reason that would happen was because I wasn't feeling that confident. I wasn't putting myself out there. I wasn't getting picked because they just didn't know who I was, because I was so shy. So once Christmas hit, and once I came back after Christmas, I felt a lot more settled. I got a couple of exams out of the way, and I passed them, and everything was fine. And I think once I realized like I can do this, and it's just a different like learning style. So when you first start dental school, it's definitely quite different to anything that you've experienced before. And I think people who are postgraduates are really, really lucky that they, you know, have 3 years to work out how to do university, and then they come and they're all, you know, ready to go. And don't get me wrong, like
that a little bit. So you were coming from Oxford, you're going to Bristol now. What was it like being in a new city? So outside of dentistry and dental school, what was it just like being in a different city? Had you been to Bristol before? Did you know Bristol quite well?
I didn't know Bristol well at all. I think I'd been 3 times before I moved there. I'd never been to my halls before. I remember I didn't manage to find the like accommodation tour when I came for the open day, and me and my mum just got a bit lost. So I'd never been to my halls before. I'd not lived anywhere else apart from Oxford before, and Bristol is a much bigger city than Oxford is. And you know, when I lived in Oxford, like we had to commute in because I live in a village, whereas this was like I'd get the bus or I would walk everywhere. And also Bristol's really hilly, so I was like, what's going on? Like Oxford's like the flattest place in the world, and suddenly I was like, what is happening? My thighs are burning. It was just an absolute nightmare. But the more I like threw myself into Bristol, and the more I like discovered places to eat and like cafes to go into, and like all the different libraries and, you know, societies that you could get involved with, and the people that you're around. Like you're meeting so many new people. Like of course it's going to be quite overwhelming and exhausting to start with, but everyone is in the same position. And I think as you go through the years and you like speak to other people, like everyone is in the same boat. They just don't like talking about it. They don't like saying like, oh, I'm finding this quite tough, because it's, you know, you don't know the people yet, so you're not confident enough to be like, look, I'm finding this difficult. But the more you go through, and the more you like throw yourself into it, and the more that you meet people in your halls, and you know, we used to have formals at our halls. It was amazing. Like every other Friday we'd have like a formal dinner, and it was amazing. I was like, what's going on? Like absolutely loved it. And it was also catered, which I would recommend actually, because that's just one thing to not have to worry about when you start a university, like not having to worry about like cooking and like buying food and like doing the groceries. Like you can just save that for a year when you get into second year, and you kind of know what you're doing a little bit more. So I certainly say it was a bit of a shock to start with, but I loved the city of Bristol. Like I was constantly walking around being like, oh, I'd love to go in there, or like, oh, I want to go in there one day, and like, oh, you know.
I mean, after having spent 5 years there, it's going to become like a second home. You know it very well. And university is that perfect opportunity to learn a new place that you might never have.
100%. So I think one of the best things about Bristol University is the fact that the dental school is about a 10-minute walk from the rest of campus. Pre-warning, it is at the bottom of the hill, but that's fine. So we're really lucky because we get to live in the city of Bristol for 5 years. You don't have any outplacements. We have one other hospital that we go to from third year onwards, but it's either once every 4 weeks or once every 2 weeks when you get into fifth year. And it's about a 15-20 minute drive or a bus journey away. So we're really lucky because we get to live in the city of Bristol for 5 years. We can live with other students because we're like other students that aren't dentists, because we are like right next to campus. And as I mentioned, I'm a hockey player, so I have been able to play university hockey for the whole time, like the whole way through. I haven't had to quit. I haven't had to change hockey club. I haven't needed to do any of that, because we do still feel integrated with the rest of the university, and the dental school are aware of that. And you know, as a course rep, we've been pushing the fact that like we want to feel part of the rest of the university, like let us facilitate that. So for example, I think a lot of people are like, oh well, how can you play hockey matches on a Wednesday afternoon if we have lectures in the morning? Like a lot of it is about being really transparent with the dental school and with whatever society you're a part of. Like it doesn't have to be sport. Like if you're part of the band or the choir or the theatre or whatever it is that you're into, you need to be transparent with both of them and be like, you know, I want to go to this lecture, you know, at 11 o'clock on Wednesday, but I've also got an away game. Is it okay if I miss it and watch the recording? And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. And other times I'll be like, no, you can't. We need to, this is essential for the practical that we have the following day, or whatever it is. But they are very reasonable. And I think it's very much a case of, like, I always say a problem shared is a problem halved. So if you tell whoever it is, oh, you know, I want to be able to fit an extracurricular along with what I'm doing, like tell them, and they are extremely accommodating. So I think the best thing about being a student in Bristol is like the sense of community that we have. Like we're all based in the dental hospital. They've just changed the curriculum, so even the first years are down there as well. You get to know all the year groups, you get to know all the staff. Like all the staff, like offices are like on 2 floors, so you can always go and like chat to them at a lunchtime if you found something really difficult or you didn't get your notes signed or whatever it is that's happened. They're always there. You can go and contact them, and you can always speak to other year groups. And when you're in second year, you assist, so you're like the nurse for the older years, so you get to chat to them and get their top tips and hear about what they're doing. And it's also so inspiring when you're very early on in the course, like seeing where you're going to end up and seeing like, oh, when I'm in 5th year, I'm going to be able to do a molar root canal on a patient. Like I'm going to develop all these communication skills. I'm going to be like them one day. It's really, really inspiring, and it's a very nice community to be a part of.
Give us a flavour of that progression from year 1 to 5 at Bristol. So I'm assuming year 1's more theory based. You're talking about the anatomy, and then year 2 getting to assist. Just give us a summary.
Sure. So as a pre-warning, Bristol University have just changed the curriculum to make it even more integrated than it was when I was doing it. But my experience has been in first year, yes, as you said, very like theory based. So we did anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, that kind of theory stuff. So what's normal in the body. Then in second year, we started learning about pharmacology, about pathology and microbiology, about dental materials, all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of learning like, things that we can interact with the body. So like external things that can interact with the body. And then at the end of second year, you start on the phantom heads. And I think it's a really nice way of doing it, because you have like a theory, like base before you're like, but before you do too much on a patient. So you start on the phantom heads, and at the same time you have your first patient. So we started on periodontology, so gum disease. And you know, you can be so nervous the first time that a patient comes in. Like I was absolutely petrified. And what I did do right before I had my first patient is I met my dental mum. So we're putting families right at the beginning of dental school. I met my dental mum, and I think I was talking to her for like 2 hours about like every single step of like what was going to happen when the patient came in. And like, and honestly, she must have like been tearing her hair out, because I was so nervous. But once I got that done with, and I realized like patients aren't that scary, and like patients are, you know, they are aware that you're a student and that things are going to take longer than, you know, it would do if they went to a general practice. But yeah, so we started with gum disease patients. Then in third year we did more building on the phantom heads, and had an exam on the phantom heads. And then once we passed that exam, we could start doing cons, so like drilling and filling and simple root canals. And then in third year you start learning about like human diseases and like things that can go wrong in the body, and about how about like people's medications and how they can interact with what's going on in terms of their dentistry. And then in fourth year you start learning more complex treatments. You go and do the advanced restorative course back on the phantom heads. And once you get to the end of fourth year, so where I am now, we've learned about oral disease, so like conditions that can present in the mouth, and also, you know, things that you will see. So either like other things that are going on in the body that will present in the mouth, or like oral conditions, oral cancer, etc., etc. We finished the advanced restorative bit, and it's all like coming together now. And I think that's what has been quite sad about the hit of coronavirus, is that I was just about to commence like all these complex treatment plans, all the bits that I've kind of been building together to all happen in final year, and that's when you have loads and loads and loads and loads of clinical time. So you're basically on clinic pretty much every day in 5th year.
What was the clinic time like from, so 2nd year you were assisting, but 3rd and 4th year, what's the clinic time like?
Sure. So when you're in 2nd and 3rd year, you're seeing patients, you probably have a clinic slot every week, and it's either you or your partner, and you assist for each other. And you probably have a slot where you're assisting for an older year as well in the week. So that happens every week. But you're also in the prosthetics lab learning about dentures and how to make dentures and all the lab stages. You're in the skills lab, as I said. And as you go through, when you're in 4th year, you start having slots more often for your own patients. So that's probably maybe twice a week. And then when you're in 5th year, you start like a new rotation. So you're on like the primary care unit, which is the emergency dental care. So patients can queue up outside the dental school from 8 o'clock in the morning with some kind of dental problem. And then they're seen by us, the final years, to sort out their dental emergencies. So you start doing that. You start going on to oral medicine. You do oral surgery as well. You start doing that in 3rd year. So taking your first teeth out. And then you're also seeing like pediatric patients, ortho patients. So we actually treat people for orthodontics, which I don't think every dental school does. So we know how to like fix people's braces and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool, because I was always interested in ortho before, as I mentioned. And so it definitely like builds and builds and builds, and you have like the most amount of lectures in 1st and 2nd year. In 3rd year, you have lots of lectures before clinic. So like the structure of the working day, just as a little an example timetable. When you're in the dental school, if you have a lecture, it's either at 8 o'clock or at 9 o'clock, or both, or neither. And then you have a slot from 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock. And that there you'll be on clinic, you'll be in the skills lab, you'll be doing oral surgery, you'll be doing peds, you'll be doing ortho, whatever it is. And then you have a lunch from 1 till 2, and then you have another slot 2 till 5, where again you'll be doing the same thing. So it's it becomes quite structured. And you know, you'll always have peds at the same time every week. You'll always have different bits and bobs, but we don't have clinic on a Wednesday, so that's just worth bearing in mind. So you do also have time to do other bits and bobs. So it like increases as you go through, which I think is quite a nice way of doing it.
Out of interest, I know different dental schools approach it, you know, patient care differently. So for some dental schools, I believe you do one aspect of the treatment, and then the other aspect of the treatment is carried out by somebody else. Is that the same for Bristol? Does it change through the years?
No. So what we do at Bristol is, when you start seeing patients, you'll be seeing like a perio patient. Obviously patients have lots of complex problems, but what happens is the supervisors will screen the patients and see what they think that the patient needs doing, and then they'll be assigned to you depending on how far through your course you are. So you'll start with perio patients. You are responsible for that patient. You are seeing the patient. That's fine. Then when you're in 3rd year and you start seeing like simple cons, they'll probably have perio and simple cons. So because you can do both of them, you'll probably do a mix of both.
I see.
And then when you get into 4th year, it'll be like, okay, now I can do crown and bridge work. Now I can do whatever it is. So you basically pick up more complex patients as you go through, but you are solely responsible for them. The only clinic that we do just that is, first of all, when you're in 3rd and 4th year, you have a specific like prosthetics slot. So we will be seeing like dentures on with a dentures supervisor, very specifically, whether that's a full denture or a partial denture. But then when you get into 5th year, they're also just in your like adult dental health slot. So that becomes incorporated as well, because with a complex treatment plan, you're probably doing perio and cons and pros and root canals, whatever it is you're doing. Like, you need to be able to see the patient in its whole. And then we also have oral surgery as like a separate like thing within itself. So if you're taking teeth out, you refer it to oral surgery, but you can book your own patient into when you're going to be in there, which is quite good. And they're very flexible about doing that. Like, oh yeah, you can take the teeth out of the patient that you're seeing. And then also pediatrics and orthodontics is a separate clinic like downstairs, but it's all within the dental hospital. So it's very much like you are seeing that patient and you are responsible for that patient. And I think that's what's really, really nice about dentistry in general, is that you very much feel responsible for the patient, and the patient is coming to see you. Like, they're seeing you as their dentist, and yes, you're being supervised, but you're the one they're asking questions to. You're the one that's like booking them in for slots and seeing when they can make it. You're the one calling them up on the phone to tell them, you know, oh, your lab work isn't quite ready, or can you make a slot that I've got free tomorrow? Like, you are the one in charge, which I think is one of the most like unique things about dentistry at university. So there's no other course, I think, that you have that kind of responsibility from, you know, second year at uni, you're suddenly like responsible for these patients. So I think that's fantastic. Personally, I think it's great.
Somebody that's never been to dental school, it sounds quite intense. Maybe somebody outside thinks, I thought you guys just looked at teeth, you know. Why is there so much to the mouth? How do you then manage all of this and still have a life?
Sure. So I would say that, like, I love dental school. I think it's great. Like, I absolutely love being there. But at the same time, when I come home, unless I obviously have an exam coming up and I need to be revising, like, I do like to switch off. And the best way for me to switch off is to completely, you know, throw myself into something completely different. So sport for me is the best thing for my physical and mental health. So being able to go and play on a hockey pitch and score a goal, and like, no one on my hockey team really cares what I've been doing during the day. All they care about is whether I'm going to score and whether I'm playing well. And, you know, and for me, having that switch off is so important, and being able to like compartmentalize what you're doing, I think is really important. But it is very manageable. Like, you're very well supported when you're at dental school, and yes, it takes a little bit of getting used to, and a lot of it is about being organized and making sure you're staying on top of what's going on, and you have a bit of an idea of what you're doing in the week and when you're likely to have free time. But, you know, you can have a life like outside of dental school. It's not as bad as it may sound when you're hearing it from an outside perspective, because all of your friends within the dental school are in the same position. So they understand. You can always talk to them about things you're finding difficult. But I've always, you know, managed to find the time to get involved with other bits and pieces. So this year I started being a course rep, which I found that I really, really enjoyed, being able to like feed back to the dental school things that we weren't enjoying or things that were going really well, or, you know, if they wanted to know what we thought about a new XYZ.
Did you ever become a course mum?
Yeah, so I think everyone's put in a family.
How was that? You know, full circle.
It's great. So you have like a sibling, and you have parents, and then you start having children, and then the children have children, and then and now I'm like a great grandma.
Did you see yourself when you were talking to one of the first years? Could you relate to when you first started?
I guess so. I think everyone's just a bit like, oh, like, what's going on? Like, and I think when you first arrive, you're just like, wow, like, everyone is such good friends. Like, how do they know each other this well? And it's like, you spend quite a lot of time with them, so everyone becomes friends. It's like impossible to not make friends at dental school. I think that is also a huge plus. Like, everyone is there for each other. Like, everyone knows what it's like to have a stressful clinic morning, or like you're upset because your patient didn't turn up, or you've got an upcoming exam. And also the year above tend to warn you like when time is going to be a bit stressful. So they're like, oh, by the way, there's some exams in November, you know, we probably want to get on top of it then. So just like speak to everyone. Yeah.
So you talked about playing hockey, being a course rep.
Yeah.
Any other things that you were getting involved in?
Sure. So when one of the best things that I went to in third year was I went to one of the Dentistry Society's conference evenings. So we have UBDSS as our dental society. And I went to a conference evening and I listened to a Bristol grad who graduated about maybe 5 years ago. And she went and did her foundation year. And then she did another foundation year where she spent half of the week doing dental public health. And because I've intercalated in global health, which I can talk about in a minute, I've had a really big interest in dental public health from there. So I went to speak to her. I was like, you know, tell me more about this foundation year that you did. She was like, I absolutely loved it. And I really liked the bigger picture part of dentistry. And then from then she set up a company. She basically quit her job as a dentist for like 6 months, did an entrepreneurship scheme that was very like tech based, and she started up a company with someone who was interested in computer tech, looking to make note taking more efficient for dentists so that they could spend more time with their patients. They could worry less about like the legal implications of not having good quality notes and just have more time on their hands. So she set up a company called Trykiroku to help with this. And after I'd spoken to her, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is the way forward, like using like digital technology and dentistry into something that's not only going to benefit patients because they will have a better interaction with their dentist, but also benefit dentists and benefit like the actual treatment and time that you're able to have with the dentist while having good legal protection. So I was like, oh, this is such a no-brainer. And then about 6 months later, I was like having more and more to think about Trykiroku, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send them an email and be like, look, I'm a 4th year dental student. I think your company's amazing. If there's any way I can get involved, like, let me know. And they were like, yeah, send us your CV. Cut a very long story short, I've been working for them since November. Yeah. And I help with all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So I help convert the dentist templates, so it's how they write their notes, into Trykiroku templates. I interact with dentists, like tweaking them when it needs to be. And then I give a lot of feedback to the company on like new things that they're developing, etc. So that's been so amazing to like see a completely different field within dentistry that's still so relevant and is still like bigger picture dentistry, but also it's just like a completely different thing, entrepreneurship within the dental field. I just never even considered it before. So that's been really, really rewarding. And then since lockdown started, I've been looking for all of the opportunities under the sun to try and like, you know, fill my time with something. So I have recently started becoming an ambassador for Immersify, and they really appealed to me because they also use digital technology to improve dentistry, but they do that within education. So what they do is that they are trying to bridge the gap between theory learning and practical learning within the dental field by creating resources using augmented reality to help with learning. So at the moment, they have like a free app for dental students that you can just go and download on the App Store to help you learn tooth morphology. And what's really great about that is that there's so much like potential for expansion, and particularly with the coronavirus pandemic, having a resource that can help you with 3D learning, because at the end of the day, like dentistry is 3D, like teeth are, 3D things that we need to be really, really good at recognizing and understanding. And what Immersify are doing is literally creating a community of like-minded people, of people who are passionate about education, and the things that they have planned and the like resources that they have are, it's just really exciting. So I've also really enjoyed being an ambassador for them.
You're making it seem like dental school, you've got loads of time to do other things.
I know, there is time. I promise there is time.
And I believe that you were recently affected by COVID and tested positive yourself.
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that experience and what came off it.
Sure. So back in March, which is obviously a little while ago now, dental school closed on like Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday the 18th of March, and the following day I was at home, I was back in Oxford, and kind of very long story short, I developed symptoms of coronavirus. So I had to isolate, or my family had to isolate, didn't leave my bedroom. It was all quite an uncertain time. And it was before the lockdown was announced. So it was very like, I didn't think there was that much like COVID around. But anyway, I did test positive, and that was very much like oh my goodness, like I thought, it wasn't that I thought it would never affect me, but I just wasn't expecting it to like happen that quickly. But anyway, so I was a bit unwell for a week, 10 days, but I made a full recovery, and luckily no one in my family got it. And then from then I was like, oh, you know what, like I really want to do something here to help the NHS if I can in any way. So I went onto the NHS jobs website, and I saw a job advertised to be a NHS 111 like call handler. They're called health advisors because that's a bit more of an accurate representation of what they do, but it was to be a health advisor specifically for COVID. And I was like, oh, this seems like a really interesting opportunity. So me and my brother, who is a medical student, both filled out an application form. We had an online interview, and it all happened so quickly. I think it was like the following week we were in the classroom learning about how the 111 service works, how Pathways works, how to use the triage system. And then the following week we were coaching. So we had a very experienced health advisor plugged into the phone with us. We were taking live calls, and we were specifically going down a coronavirus pathway, because the ambulance service, so where I am, so the South Central Ambulance Service, were taking all of the coronavirus calls nationally. So we were dealing with everyone from across the country to get them the most appropriate level of care. And a lot of it was referring them to like telephone assessment, because obviously they couldn't go to appointments because if they were symptomatic. So that was really interesting. And then after a week of being coached, I was then signed off so I could go live. And then I did that for 2 weeks. And then we were told that COVID was becoming incorporated into the rest of the pathway. So the 111 use lots of different pathways depending on the symptoms that you have, and to get the most appropriate outcome. So that was then incorporated into what they had already. So I then had to be upskilled so that I could take all of the 111 calls. So I was then in a classroom from 5 p.m. till 1 a.m. every day for 2 weeks while I was trying to revise my end of year exams in May. That was not to be recommended, but never mind. Got through and I passed them, so it was fine. But I then had another week of coaching. So again, someone plugged in, and then I've been live taking all 111 calls for 3 weeks now. I've just finished my third week. And it's so fantastic because now that I'm trained in Pathways, I can work for the 111 service anywhere in the country because they use the same system. And honestly, like, could not recommend it more. If you're going to university and you're like, look, I'm a bit worried about money, I'm a bit worried about like the fact I'm going to be at uni for 5 years and you're like looking for a part-time job, like I think it's amazing, first of all, for the CV, number two, for like developing communication skills. So I've had to develop all these verbal communication skills, and a lot of what you do in dentistry a lot of the time is working on those non-verbal. So you know, being at eye level with a patient, like calmly communicating with someone, but also you can see what's going on. So even if they give you a really vague history, you can just have a look at the mouth and see what's going on. And suddenly all of that was taken away, and I was just relying on what people were telling me on the phone. And the way that people describe things can be so different. And it's been really, really interesting hearing how, for example, there's a very big generalization, but the older generations tend to underplay everything and the younger generations tend to overplay everything. So that's really interesting, like seeing how they're reacting to like different things that are going on. Also really interesting hearing the way that different people react to stressful situations, when they're worried about, you know, loved ones or people that that they're not really sure what's going on. And I think developing those kind of skills has been really fantastic. And yeah, as a part-time job, so now I work 18 hours a week. You would be able to work evenings and weekends, and you get paid more if you work in antisocial hours. So, you know, if you're like, oh, I really need a part-time job, and this doesn't have to just be for your dental students. Like students in general, I just think it's a fantastic opportunity. So I've been really, really enjoying that, and as is my brother. And obviously at times it can be quite emotionally challenging depending on what people are calling about. So for example, mental health calls, I've never had to ask anyone such direct questions about their mental health, but I think every dental professional needs to be trained in it, because it could be happening to our own patients. And, you know, what we're doing for 111 is helping the person. Like, someone's calling because they are struggling, and you asking them a direct question about their mental health is only going to help them. It's not going to make anything worse. So once I got through that distinction, I definitely felt a lot better. But yeah, that's been a completely unexpected thing to get involved with. It was not what I imagined doing 5 months ago, but you know, I'm really enjoying it. And
we were talking earlier on, and you were talking about you even getting involved with donating blood.
Yeah, of course. So when so I'm a blood donor from time to time anyway, but because I tested positive for COVID, I heard about the fact that you could donate convalescent plasma to help people who have COVID. So I was like, ooh, this sounds like a great opportunity, because I'm one of the first people that, you know, seems to have tested positive from COVID. So got into contact with NHS Blood and Transplant, and they booked me in a couple of weeks later for donating plasma. And it's basically the same as donating blood, but better, because what happens is they the blood comes out of you, and then they put it through a centrifuge, and then you get the blood back. So you don't feel as I think some people feel a bit lightheaded after they donate blood, but plasma is great, and you're literally helping the people who are sickest with COVID-19. And I'm seeing lots of people at the moment who are testing and being antibody positive, which is fantastic. But I would encourage everyone who's had a positive antibody result to get in contact with NHS Blood and Transplant, donate convalescent plasma. And even if you haven't tested positive, they're always looking for blood donors, plasma donors, platelet donors. Just get into contact with them. The NHS needs us right now. So if anyone wants to donate, please do. It's something I'm really passionate about. And if anyone has any questions, please get in contact. But yeah.
Fantastic. This is an awesome job. And then in terms of society, so dental societies you can get involved in, I understand you're a member of the Perry Society, British Society of Perry.
Yeah, so I love being a student member of things, because 95% of the time it's free for student members, and you get access to so many different resources. So I've been a member of the BDA since I was in 3rd year, and you get a student magazine every I think 3 times a year, and you get copies of the BDJ journal through the post every month from 3rd year onwards. I'm a member of the BACD. I did that quite recently, so the British Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. I'm a member of the Periodontology Society, and they have some amazing resources out there, like the webinars that they produce, by students for students. Would really recommend having a look into that. There's just so many societies out there, and when you're a qualified dentist, you have to have a bit of a think about it, because you have to pay for their membership. But for students, it's free. So honestly, sign up for all of them. Why not? And recently I wrote an article about intercalation. So I intercalated between my 2nd and 3rd year in global health, and I took so much from the experience. I got to have a year kind of experiencing life as a normal student, in a way, as not being a dental student. I had to become, organized because I wanted to be, rather than because I needed to be. I got to learn all of these skills about critically analyzing papers, about how to pick up bits from papers that are actually relevant, being able to understand the statistics that were in it, for example. And the topics that we learned in global health were absolutely fascinating. So learning all about health policy, about inequalities in this country, across the world. I learned about anthropology, I learned about child health, loads and loads of bits and pieces. And then I had the opportunity to write a dissertation. And since I've come back to dental school, having had that year, I feel like I've enjoyed dental school even more, and I was so well supported by Bristol to go off and intercalate. They really actively encouraged me to do so.
I think my first thought when you say intercalation is you now come out of sync with the year group that you've been.
Sure. Yeah,
How
sure.
do you handle that?
Sure. So lots of people say that. So lots of people are like, oh, I couldn't possibly, leave my year group. And everyone seems to say like, oh, the year below are weird. Like the year below aren't weird. Like everybody says that. It's just not true. Yeah, it's certainly a bit different, of course. And when you come back, you're like, oh, this is a whole year group that's been with each other for 2 years and they don't know who I am. But honestly, that changes within like 2 weeks. Like literally, you just become a part of the new year. You get double the amount of friends. Like I'm still such good friends with the year that's just graduated. So they've all just graduated as dentists. And I've still got another year to go. It's meant that I've been able to anticipate what's coming much better. And I think I've enjoyed and I've studied better for assignments in dental school much better because I feel like I can read around things better. And every time we have some kind of writing project, so we had an oral biology project in like the first term back in third year, I was like, oh, well, I know how to do this because I know how to read papers properly. I know how to amalgamate evidence. I know how to pick evidence apart in a way that I wouldn't have done otherwise. But also the massive thing was that I was really interested in global health. So I did geography for A-level and I've always been interested in healthcare systems, in, the way that they work and the way that they're different across the world. I remember I went to Cuba when I was in sixth form, and they have a completely different healthcare system to our own. But like their life expectancy was, I think our life expectancy at the time was like 80 and theirs was 77, and their GDP per person was like a tenth of what ours was. And I was like, wow, like what are they doing here? And it turns out like they have loads and loads of doctors per person and it's all preventative stuff. So that was just really, I was always like, wow, like I would love to know more about that. So if you're going to Intercalate, do it in something you're really interested in, and just go for it. Like I think a lot of people are put off because they're like, oh, I'll leave my year group. Like don't let that bother you. Like you will make twice as many friends. You will come out with 2 degrees. So I got to graduate after a year, just a year doing global health. I got to graduate with all my friends that I'd met back in first year who were doing 3-year degrees. And I got to discover the city of Bristol even more than I had been able to before that. And, if you're like, oh, I really want to get involved with more societies, but I don't feel like I can, Intercalate, you have the time, like do it. The one thing that I would say was that the course that I did was a 1-year standalone intercalation. So I was intercalating with people who were also intercalating. So there was 30 of us. There were medics, dentists and vets. We all had slightly different backgrounds. We were all from different universities. We were all different stages of our degree. And that was really fantastic for like group discussion and, exploring different topics and different experiences that people had, etc. The other thing you can do is join in to an existing degree. So for example, I know someone who joined in to the pharmacology degree and did the 3rd year. I personally would have found that really difficult because you're with people who have just done pharmacology for 2 years. So I don't think I'm academic enough to be able to keep up with that. But if you're really interested in it and you're hardworking and you're motivated, like, you can do it. So I know a girl in the year above who, she did pharmacology. I'm fairly sure she got a 1st in the end. And I was like, how have you done this? So there are definitely like 2 different options. It was quite exciting the year that I did global health because there was another dentist who did it with me, and we've never had like 2 dentists at the same time, and she went to Leeds University, which was really fun. So I got to hear a bit about her experiences at dental school. So yeah, definitely worth considering and exploring if you're interested.
I think what's clearly evident is that you're passionate about learning, and you're passionate about dentistry. And I think that's so key because when you've got the passion, it means that you're able to actually take up every opportunity that comes your way. I mean, just listen to your story, being able to be involved with hockey, being a course rep, being a call handler, health advisor, being able to do all of these things, societies within dental school or professional bodies that you've joined, as well as intercalating, getting another degree. I mean, it clearly shows that if you're passionate enough, you can get a lot out of dental school, and it's going to stand you in good stead for dentistry, being a dentist.
Yeah, 100%. And I think my one piece of advice with that is that almost all of the things that I'm involved with because I've like put myself out there, and I have contacted people, or I have, I've kind of gone out of my way to try and do something a bit different.
Yeah.
Not all of these things just sort of landed on my lap like, oh, Emily, you might be interested in this, you should do it. It's very much like what you put in is what you get out again. And there are plenty of things that I've gone for that haven't worked out. Like I applied to be a part of the dentistry society, like the committee, and I ran and I didn't get the role, and I was a bit gutted at the time, but it meant that I had more time to get involved with something that was a bit different. So you just have to go for things, and I think it's really good for me to not get everything that I try and get, because I think it's given me a lot more resilience. And at the end of the day, like, it will be quite a competitive graduate market when we get out there, and I think investing in diversification of your skill set is so important. And I think that is what COVID has shown us. Like, dentistry is very reliant on your manual dexterity, and I would like to think that if some disaster happened and my left hand fell off tomorrow, I would still have skills out there that I could use within the field of dentistry. Because you never know what's going to happen. So I think what I've tried to do throughout dental school is try and keep as many doors open as I can. And I've no idea what my career is going to look like in 5 years' time. I don't know if I'm going to be like, oh, I want to set up my own business, or I'm going to be a practice owner, or I'm going to specialize in orthodontics or in pediatrics, or I'm going to do dental public health for a day a week, or I'm going to mix up my I'm working with a few practice. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but what I wanted to do at dental school is just take it all in, and I try and speak to my supervisors and find out their stories and how they've got to where they are today. And what I've done really recently is I've set up an Instagram page, and I was very much like, oh, I'm not going to do that until I graduate so I can have like a professional page. But that's been fantastic. Like, I've been able to hear what other dental students across the country are doing, and I think I also just didn't worry about what other people might think about that. I think a lot of people are like, oh no, like people will think I'm too keen, or they'll think I'm if I set up my own page. And I just went for it. I was like, you know what, like, I'm just going to go for it. And I've really, really enjoyed it. And it's opened quite a few doors in that sense. Like, I found out about Immersify through this dental account that I made. So yeah, that's what I would say to any current dental student, or any prospective dental student, or any student in general. Just try and put yourself out there and go for things. And if it doesn't work out, like, most of the time people have no idea what you've tried to go for. So just go for it, and
Awesome.
enjoy yourself.
I feel like I've been to Bristol Dental School now. I feel like I'm part of the crew. I've had a full, comprehensive, education on what it's like to be Bristol. So thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find this helpful. People that are considering Bristol, or just considering dentistry and wanting to know what dental school is like. If people want to find out more from you, where can they find you?
So a little plug for my new Instagram page. So one word, Emily Dental. You give me a follow. I've got my email address on there and everything. So if you ever want to chat in person, or send me a DM, or whatever it is, like, do not be afraid to get in contact. I'm always more than happy to help. So
I will put that in the description. So guys, make sure to go find out more on her page. And we'll find you guys in the next video. Make sure to subscribe, and thank you for listening today. Thank you, Emily.
No problem. Thank you.